The role of state in public service delivery policy is very important. There are various factors that influences it. However, the use of feedback is also important for implementation of these policies. The paper also tells us about the proximity of service delivery system and the state government. However, the public service delivery deals with various services like education, health, sanitation, provision of water, employment, etc. There are various evaluation techniques to know about to judge the services of the public given by the government. These may deal with proper management, the role of service providers, etc. The paper also deals with public-private policies, or you can say public-private partnership, which is very important and occupies an important role. Delivery of public services forms an important part of good governance. There is a broad agreement amongst most development professionals that human development through improved access to basic service is indispensable for sustainable and sound economic growth. Proper access to public services such as health, education, water and sanitation leads to a better quality of life and provide individuals opportunities to fully utilize their capabilities. Role of state in service delivery. Despite the major debate between the capacity of the state and private actors to deliver public services more efficiently, it has been argued that core public services such as water, power, education, health, policing, etc. should be left to the state. The reason which is put forward for such an argument is that these goods and services have important benefits not captured in market returns. An argument is made by Samuel Paul when he states that there are strong reasons why government plays a major role in providing basic services. The infrastructure to offer standardized and cost-efficient services is usually large and complex, thus prone to uncertainties that private producers would be unable to bear. On the other hand, many services such as law and order and preventive health are public goods from the benefit of which no one can be excluded. India has a reasonable performance in asset creation and public spending. However, there exists a huge gap when it comes to satisfaction with the quality of services. The problems that service delivery face are, or you can say, the factors affecting public service delivery are: number one, management. In most of the developing and world, public services are managed and owned by the state due to the nature of the services which are being offered. Since there is a single body which supervises and manages services, it is highly overburdened with duties and responsibilities. This is further compounded by the rapid growth of population, which puts an added pressure on the demand and delivery of services. On the other hand, these agencies work under severe resource constraints with large number of incompetent staff dealing with poorly organized citizenry and weak civil society. Thus, the issue of management plays a pivotal role in determining how weak or strong the public delivery system of a country turns out to be. Next is the role of the service provider. Service provider agencies enjoy a high level of protection, which gives them freedom to make their own rules, such as of expansion and expenditure, without having a parallel increase in the quality of services that they provide. Many believe that inadequate reforms in the provider agencies and the limited exit options available to the people who use the services continue to make it difficult for the weaker sections of the society to access these services. The next is the subsidies. When it comes to core basic services, there is an ample amount of subsidy which is offered to make it more affordable to the poorer sections of the society. However, Measures which are aimed at expanding the outreach and universality of services has been prone to corrupt practices. The next point is overlap of functions. Very often, it's a single agency which provides the service, makes policies for the same, and also supervises the whole process. Instilling all these functions in one body creates complications when it comes to accountability, as it is difficult to determine who is the culprit when it is failure to deliver. Plus, it leads to patronage and corruption. Next is the oversight and supervision. Absence of close and timely scrutiny with regard to expenditures which are incurred by way of delivery of services poses a challenge. Governments typically monitor the progress of expenditure on each and every service and scheme and measure achievement in terms of physical assesses and benefits created and recorded by officials. However, it is difficult to determine the quality, reach, and benefits of the assets so created. Policy statements may declare certain services as freely available, yet, in hidden reality, costs such as bribes and delays may negate these benefits, putting a major dent on delivery of services. The evaluation techniques. There are a number of evaluation techniques when it comes to assessing the working of a particular service which is being provided by the usual route which is followed and that of looking at the larger outcomes. Such a practice doesn't provide one with an idea about, as stated above, the reach of service, the quality, etc. Another issue in such an approach pointed out by Samuel Powell is that outcomes which are measured are long in nature, which may be influenced by a plethora of other factors. Samuel Powell gives the example of infant mortality, where he says, it can come down over the years, but it may not be due to the policies which are formulated by the state, but can be due to other factors such as more public awareness, role of NGOs, etc. Samuel Powell also points that such findings come after a long time gap. Hence, it makes it difficult for the government to have mid-term corrective measures which can improve the efficiency of the services being delivered. Accountability is one point. Accountability is one of the buzzwords in service delivery. The main idea is that service providers should have better incentives to respond to the needs of beneficiaries. Next point is corruption. In most developing countries, corruption poses a serious threat to efficient delivery of public services. Corruption reduces the scope of benefits that the service provider is able to provide. Curbing corruption requires change both at the level of policy and also at the institutional level. However, reform is mostly initiated at the policy, which does not provide a solution to the problem of corruption. Anti-corruption programs sponsored by development agencies emphasize macro-level initiatives such as economic and sector policy reforms and transformation of critical institutions such as the judiciary. Large-scale reforms are, of course, critical in reducing corruption, but they also require time and considerable political will to implement. Another section is reforming public service delivery. Suggestions for improvement of public service delivery have two broad dimensions. First, coming in of alternative actors other than the state in the delivery of services, and secondly, administrative and capability enhancing reforms. The following section would try to look at the various ways in which the Indian state deals with public service delivery reforms and various methods by which it can improve it further. One such step is privatization, a very popular trend which has been observed all over the world is to bring in the private sector as service providers. The main argument that is provided for such a move is that private providers are more efficient as compared to their public counterparts. Poor quality public services create a de facto that privatization is more efficient. Private here does not mean only for profit firms. It can also include not for profit firms, communities, and even user groups. Engagement with non-state providers doesn't mean less government, but it requires different government in the sense of a different role, with different skills and capacities to develop, manage, and monitor service agreements. Next is engaging communities. One mode of improving services is to push for greater community involvement, particularly by the users of the services. Particularly in rural water supply, there has been a shift towards demand-driven schemes in which the communities take responsibility for functions. A recent study estimated that in Uttar Pradesh, rural water supply schemes that are demand-driven schemes such as Swajal Dhara see 90% of funds reaching beneficiaries in terms of new capital expenditures, whereas for supply-driven schemes, the figure is as low as 40%. The National AIDS Control Organization, NACO, which finances state and local HIV/AIDS control activities, operate largely through service delivery contracts to NGOs for targeted interventions, behavior change communication, and other services. Cullen and Hansen view PPP as an arrangement between a municipality and one or more private firms where all parties share risks, profit, utilities, and investments through a joint ownership of an organization. According to Grimsey, public-private partnerships can be defined as arrangements whereby private parties participate in or provide support for the provision of infrastructure, and a public-private partnership project results in a contract for a private entity to deliver public infrastructure-based services. In India, at present, there are 785 PPP projects. These projects have come up in sectors like airports, ports, roads, railways, education, energy, forest, health, information technology, tourism, urban development, industries, agriculture, water, and sanitation. Karnataka has the highest number of PPP projects at 104, and Uttarakhand and Chandigarh having the lowest number. The highest number of public and private projects have come up in roads, which accounts for 53.4% of the total number of projects. That is 405, with rupees 176,725 crore as the total investment estimated cost. Public-private partnerships in soft sectors have not been so aggressive as compared to hard sectors such as roads. Public-private partnerships have been accused of being very discriminatory towards the vulnerable sections of the population. Thus, only those citizens benefit who have the monetary resources to purchase the service. Since many vulnerable populations are not able to meet the skilled, critical purchaser requirement of the buyer, beware market vulnerable populations may not be able to respond appropriately and aggressively to demand service. Hence, such citizens fall on the wayside as businesses in the private sector are not altruistic in nature. Many have argued that issue of accountability of such partnerships can be traced to a three-way inference, where the two sides of the spectrum would include the private and the government, while the third side would need engagement of the people. Engagement of the masses could be indeed a difficult task, but indirect involvement could be done. The judicial interventions and RTIs are such instances that can raise issues of accountability. Hence, what is needed is that public-private partnerships should be accompanied by a robust governance model which ensures transparency and accountability. The extensively documented experience of the Janani program in Bihar, which has managed to set up a very large network of primary and secondary level service delivery points, Using a social franchising model is a case in point. In some cases, private Janani-linked facilities can be found operating successfully in close proximity to virtually defunct government facilities but still draw significant budget. How to strengthen regulatory bodies? Clarifying and separating policy, regulatory, financing, and service provision roles, which are presently usually combined in one agency, is an important step. Sector regulatory agencies now present in telecommunications and ports at the national level and in power at the state and national level have been an important part of attempts to increase accountability and performance. An independent regulatory agency is a crucial step in unbundling government roles, as it clearly separates the policy maker function of government from the provider function, so that even if both are public sector bodies, this creates checks and balances by creating incentives for generating performance information. Regulatory mechanisms in India can be further improved by having clear mandates for agencies, better funding, and having separate tribunals for the resolution of disputes. NGOs and service delivery is the next. It has been argued that NGOs are able to perform better than for-profit firms and government agencies. The reasons for this are manifold. It has been observed that NGOs are able to foster public service motivation by providing a better match between the ends of the organization and its workers. A government that is buffeted around by electoral concerns may result in some public servants having to carry out policies which they do not believe in. This undermines public service motivation. The enthusiasm for NGOs in the developing world is there. However, despite the positive view of the involvement of NGOs in delivery of services, there can also be opportunistic behaviors by such organizations as well. This is also confounded by the fact that NGOs have very weak accountability structures and are not accountable to people as compared to a private organization or the state. The role of competition. Creating competition between the various service providers is an effective mechanism of reforming public service delivery. The well-known effect of competition in the context of private goods is to retain existing consumers or attract new ones. An organization has to either cut costs or improve quality. However, this competition only serves the purpose if the consumers are well informed of their rights as beneficiaries and are able to access mechanism to hold accountable service providers. Even if increased competition and private sector entry has worked wonders in telecommunications, it does not mean the same approach will work for power or highways. The last being feedback of citizens. The experience of citizens and their opinion and level of satisfaction with the service provides to be a valuable input when it comes to monitoring a particular service. However, such attempts to gauge citizens' experience is mostly neglected in the process of evaluation. Citizens can comment on aspects of quality, cost, delay in services, repeated visits to the agencies to solve problems, the investments people make to compensate for the unreliability of services, and corruption in the services which entail most cost to the citizens. Such inputs on the level of satisfaction of the user reflects on the quality of the service so provided and also points towards gaps in the policy so framed. It can be concluded now that for effective public service delivery system, there are many components involved, but all the public service delivery system deals with people. So the context should be taken into account before forming policies. There are factors, there are obstacles like anti-government policies, implementation of these policies, bargaining policies, etc. So all the stakeholders should be involved in when public policies are being framed. Of course, these policy needs to be very flexible also, so that any changes that come across can be imbibed easily. Thank you.